I always love it when IEMs they go a bit experimental and try out novel technologies because sometimes it gives birth to just an awesome experience that not many others can deliver. And I think that's the Kiwi Ears Etude that I have with me today. Now I didn't expect to like this IEM as much as I do, but I think it's a diamond in the rough, and it has turned me from a skeptic of bone conduction drivers into a convinced listener. So let's see why this etude is such a novel listening experience. So from first glance, the etude shell, it doesn't look too different, right? You've got this colorful, glittering pattern on the front, dominated by this bright yellow shade with some purple and blue accents, but the construction of this shell itself, it feels quite odd. So whenever you tap on the etude, you can kind of hear these metallic pings from the shell. This is because the etude contains a bone conduction unit alongside its one dynamic and free balanced armature driver setup. And this bone conduction driver is sort of the special sauce that makes the etude just a really unique IEM compared to its sister models and even other competitors. So I'm guessing the shell is constructed this way to sort of let the vibrations of the driver ring through to your ears. And that goes both ways. The bone conduction driver on the etude, it requires you to make as much contact as possible between your ears and the shell of the IEMs to transfer through all of those vibrations. Therefore, the ear tip strategy here is to get just the shortest tips you can possibly put on, whilst ensuring a good seal so that you can essentially just press the etude, just press it right up to your eardrums. Now, depending on your ear anatomy, you may or may not be able to appreciate the benefits of the BCD driver. And I find that the stock ear tips, they were not useful for this, But the Akustun AET07s, they were the best balance of comfort and just getting the etude close to my ears. Now, Tang Sankai's would be softer and more comfortable, but they do tend to slip out, so be wary of that. Now, as for the source, you can get away with like fairly low power to drive the etude. Something like this Allegro Mini, also from Kiwi Ears, is a compact and quite a convenient option. Feeding the etude some more juice is not a bad choice either. Just make sure to keep listening volumes reasonable, otherwise the BCD driver will start distorting. Now, I've listened to quite a few IEMs with the bone conduction tech, and those attempts have been quite experimental with varying effects. Now, there are IEMs from CVJ that employ this driver, but it's often overdone with inelegant tunings, or the Flip Ears Legion, which mostly focuses on the bass range. Stuff like the Unique Melody Mest Mark III or the VA Audio Origin, they have the opposite effect. They make the bone conduction effect just too subtle, and it ends up just kind of being redundant. But with the etude, I think the BCD here, it acts as a bridge from the low end to the lower mid-range. And so far, it's been the most effective and pleasant implementation I've heard for this driver tech. The sound is what sets the etude apart from a lot of stuff that I've tried in the $100 tier. This IEM grabs like an alien with an almost flat line that resembles my C-Audio Mapo Tofu, but it sounds quite different from the Tofu IEM as well. And that ripple from the 150 to 300 Hz range is where the vibration transducer is going wild. I find that if you boost the 125 to 500 Hz range, the effect of the vibration driver is increased as well. So you can actually apply EQ should you want to hear it more clearly. The low end is definitely the most unique part with the etude. Its low end is a combination of the dynamic feeling that gets you the oomph and the slam that you expect from a conventional driver. But then this different shell construction, it seems to allow even the dynamic itself to spread the bass across the entire IEM and transfer that energy into your ears. Similarly, this is aided on the mid-bass side by the BCD, giving this bass a soft but reverberating feeling that sometimes it tingles your ears actually. If I go by the bass of the DD alone, it's a bit one note and overly soft, but the added vibrations, they really change the overall feel, and it makes for a great experience with little percussive notes having their own kind of distinct place in the track. Like for example, the little drum beats in Lovely Lonely Cat. Mid-range on the etude is quite playful, again because the vibration transducer is affecting the sound delivery in different levels. It depends on the song, right? And it's been just a really fun time rediscovering my music library to see which track benefits from the vibration transfer function. So far, the most unique experience has been on Suisei's Shanty cover. The lower pitch singing voice of Suisei, it almost perfectly matches the bone conduction driver's range, and it makes it seem like Suisei is just whispering next to your ears, rather than like a normal vocal performance of other IEMs. Now in other tracks where the vocals aren't targeted, like the entirety of Cash Cash's Blood, Sweat and 3 Years album, the BCD it aids with separation, allowing some melodies and guitars to play on almost like a separate pipeline of sorts, and gives other musical elements headroom to show themselves without smudging or smearing. The high range of etude it completes the sound, balancing out the bass energy without trying to steal the show from under it. You get this crispy and airy treble range that is tastefully handled. It doesn't veer into the sibilant or scratchy territory. It exists to add overall clarity and overtones to instruments like pianos and harps. Now, because you have to keep the etude like really tightly pressed against your ears, the soundstage width is fairly modest, though thankfully it leans towards being intimate rather than suffocating. Surprisingly enough, the stage height is quite well portrayed on this IM, providing decent imaging abilities. The technicalities on the etude, though, they are a bit tricky to describe. I've seen reviews of this IEM say that it has a weak or mediocre text, and that observation holds true if the BCD effect is not well displayed. Let's say if I use like longer ear tips that don't let the shell contact my ears as much, yeah, the etude, it just sounds like a conventional normal IEM, albeit with slightly blunted dynamic range and not much in the way of detailing. However, when the bone conduction driver is properly given the chance to show itself to shine, it offloads the macro details from the other components and has very competent separation, fairly comparable with $100 tier competitors. The weak point here, it lies with the micro detail extraction. As the etude's more musical kind of nature, it doesn't try to extract minutiae from your song. And the thickened bass, it can give off this low fidelity feeling at times. There are many solid IEMs worth a look at the $100 tier, but the Juzear Defiant, it continues to be my workhorse of choice for its neutral, low peanut gain tuning and solid technical foundations all around. Compared to the etude, both IEMs, they have similar styles with a colorful front, though the Defiant's shells are more solid and dense feeling, whilst the etude, it has a more hollow construction to accommodate the bone conduction driver. Accessories wise, the Defiant is giving you more, basically, with a modular cable, foamies, and a bit of merch from Zeos. Whilst the etude, it's a lot more utilitarian. The Defiant, it sticks to a more kind of meta blueprint, offering a neutral sound, whilst the etude is going towards the warm, bassy territory and isn't afraid to be a bit tonally off in order to achieve a unique feel. Bass on the Defiant has a sort of more solid texture. It's more focused on slam, whilst the etude goes for extended decay and that tingling sensation that you get from the BCD vibration driver. Mid-range on both are similar in tuning, but they present quite differently. The Defiant, it just sounds like a conventional IEM with good separation, right? But the etude is a more peculiar affair. Sometimes it lets vocals, like I said, whisper directly into your eardrums, or it lets certain instruments kind of float on a side space depending on the track. Detailing on the Defiant is more often than not superior. It's got a bit better resolving power, more micro detail extraction compared to the Etude, although both IEMs, they have good imaging for their price point. If you're looking for like a more tonally consistent and conventionally good IEM, yeah, the Defiant takes the cake. But I can't deny that the Etude is just a much more fun listening experience, with its bone conduction trick giving just an entirely new way to listen to your songs. This is a slightly higher tier of IEM, so Kiwi Ears gives you a bigger than usual box, still with the professional graphic design language. Slide off the sleeve, open the top, and you see the Etude on top, with the box below containing a little pleather case. It's a good size case, with the Kiwi Ears logo printed on top, inside of which you get free ear tip types. This is the same assortment that came on the original cadenza, and there's of course the cable, which surprisingly looks more basic than the one that comes with the new but lower price cadenza Mark II. Regardless, it's a usable cable with a low profile and okay microphonics. So this is an okay unboxing experience. Kiwi Ears has never given you a generous or luxurious amount of accessories. It's just enough to get you started. But the inclusion of the carrying case does make this package complete. Now I have to note that similarly priced competitors, they are now offering cables with modular plugs in the box. And some even including a dongle as well. So Kiwi Ears, y'all gotta step up your unboxing game, okay? Many brands have tried to incorporate bone conduction technology to enhance their IEM's performance, which either overemphasize the effect to the detriment of tuning, or they make it too subtle and become redundant. So to my ears, the Kiwi Ears Etude is by far the most pleasing implementation of the bone conduction effect, by having it serve as a bridge between the bass and the lower mid-range. It's certainly not perfect, right? It needs tip rolling, and the effect likely varies from ear to ear, but when it does work, it produces a really unique listening experience. And it's just the most convincing argument for bone conduction drivers in an IEM that I've heard yet. The Etude, it also brings an uncommon driver technology, once reserved only for prototypes or maybe flagships, that bringing it down to a more affordable price range, and I think that deserves some kudos as well. For the adventurous listener wanting a different experience, the Kiwi Ears Etude is a diamond in the rough, bringing good vibrations. And that's it for this review. Thank you to Kiwi Ears for providing me a sample of the E2 to try. Regardless, they do not have any creative or editorial control over my content, and all that I've shared in this video are my honest thoughts.